One cannot talk about changing society without speaking some about politics. However, I approach politics in this presentation mainly to convince you that all politicians, no matter what their stripe, are clueless about this revolution going on around them. I also examined some possible solutions to the chaos caused by the AI revolution. These solutions come from both the left and the right, so please do not pout if your sacred cow is gored, but please feel free to challenge me with a question afterward. Because of time constraints, I paint this very complex topic with a broad brush. I'm forced to leave out a lot of details in order to give you a complete overview. It's a lot of material, so please hold questions until the end of the presentation. I will endeavor to answer everyone's questions. So with that, we're going to dive in. Our machines are becoming smarter, better, and faster than humans, and that's resulting in a lot of global political and economic upheaval. A couple of easy examples of this are the Yellow Vest protest in France, and also rising union support and union activity in the United States. Both of these phenomena are occurring essentially because of stagnant wages. Wages have remained stagnant for at least a decade, and they only recently started to go up just before the pandemic. They started to go up in the United States when unemployment became near zero. But the reason wages are stagnating is because so many jobs are being automated. And I'm going to show you more about this as we go along. This has a lot of consequences in our society. One of them is wealth is becoming very much more concentrated. Society is quickly being divided into haves and have-nots. Our national security will be challenged by this, and our very democracy will be challenged by it as well. We're going to start looking at these developments with a driver of technology throughout the ages, which is the military. The major advancements in technology throughout time has been driven by military need. Charles Babbage invented his mechanical computer in the mid-1800s for the British Defense Ministry, who wanted to calculate more accurate artillery tables. The first electronic computer was invented for the same reason. This time in America, the U.S. Army wanted to calculate more accurate artillery tables. And the Internet was invented to protect military command and control in the United States from a nuclear first strike. Similarly, AI is being advanced by military need. And we're going to take a look at some of these weapons right now. Everything I'm going to show you is very close to being operational. Some of them are operational. Meet the United States Air Force Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is designed to escort F-22 and F-35 fighters, to protect them and also to scout ahead of them and destroy targets. A fighter like the F-35 costs $100 million. This drone costs $3 million. So you can see that you could buy literally dozens of these things for the cost of one manned fighter. The U.S. Navy has a Stingray refueling drone that will become operational by 2024. The Valkyrie began flight testing in March 2019 and should be operational next year. The U.S. Navy has a surface drone called the Sea Hunter. The Sea Hunter costs $20 million versus a destroyer that costs close to $1 billion. It has entered operational testing in 2019 and will soon be deployed. It recently navigated by itself from the West Coast all the way out to Hawaii. The U.S. Navy has the Orca. The Orca is an underwater vessel, as you can see here from this picture. Its cost is $11 million versus a cost of a nuclear attack sub, which is over $1 billion. So you can see the economic reasons why these drones would be produced and made operational. But the revolutionary thing about them is that they're all intelligent. They can run on their own. They can seek out targets on their own. They can navigate on their own. They can be programmed with the tactics of enemy fleets so that they know how to carry out their missions and get around the enemy's defenses. The Orca is probably the most dangerous because, unlike the other drones I've just shown you, the Orca can remain underwater for months, looking, seeking, finding its targets and destroying them. And you can see where that might be a problem. If the war happens to end before one of these drones finds its target, it's still going to be underwater looking for it for months. After about 3 months, it will surface and ask for additional orders. But in the meantime, accidents might happen. The U.S. Army isn't to be left out. The U.S. Army has the NGCV program. That's the Non-Generation Combat Vehicle, or Next Generation Combat Vehicle. The Army is testing that right now. Going forward, the Army will not buy any vehicles that don't have AI capability in them. And right now, it's deploying kits to its existing vehicles to give them AI capability so they can be optionally manned. Right now, you can go out to YouTube and look at a video that shows a squadron of Bradley fighting vehicles that are controlled by AI, moving around, navigating, and moving through their reconnaissance mission by themselves. But what's going to come in the future? Well, meet the next generation soldier. This is Atlas, developed and made by Boston Dynamics. Atlas is a real-life Terminator developed by money from DARPA. You're about to see a couple of videos here. I want to show you how far this technology has progressed in just 8 years. I'm going to show you what Atlas was capable of in the year 2011, and I'm also going to show you what he was capable of as of last year. As you watch these videos, and they're very short, but as you watch them, I want you to notice how easily and quickly and human-like Atlas moves. You have to realize that Atlas is making millions of calculations a second in order to move like it does. The human brain does this automatically, unconsciously. Atlas have to make all those calculations himself. But you'll notice how capable this robot has become. Check this out. That, folks, was 2011. Now watch the improvement just through the last 8 years, and this was just last year. Check this out. Do you see how well it balances and turns and how fast it moves? You can easily imagine its arms being replaced with weapons, or maybe a weapon being designed that its arms can hold, and it can operate just like a soldier. The only difference is it doesn't get tired, it doesn't sleep, and just like the fictional Terminator, it will not stop until its enemy is dead. All of these drones I've shown you, except Atlas, except Atlas, are stealthy. They're small. Their radar cross sections are very small. Orca would look like a small fish. The surface vessel would look like a small fishing boat on radar. And radar defensive systems are designed to filter these out because it's looking for threats. So let's put you in the position of a Chinese admiral. You are now an admiral in the Chinese Navy on the Liaoning, the Chinese Navy's only aircraft carrier, with a battle group around you of destroyers and submarines protecting you underneath. You are looking for the American fleet who is challenging your control of the South China Sea. Now, the entire Chinese strategy hinges upon being able to find the American fleet and sink it with long-range missiles. But the American fleet is nowhere to be seen. It's thousands of miles away. Instead, out of nowhere, a group of torpedoes launched from Orcas on your port side sinks 3 of your destroyers. So you order evasive maneuvers. But the Orcas are programmed to know your tactics, and they've already figured that you were going to do that. So another squadron of Orcas on your starboard side launches another round of torpedoes and sinks the rest of your escorts. Now you're by yourself on the Liaoning. So you decide to turn around and head back to port. The only problem with that is a squadron of sea hunters way behind you has laid mines between you and the port. On the way back to port, you're sunk. In the meantime, squadrons of Valkyries with their missiles have eliminated all the defenses on the islands that you have occupied in the South China Sea. Now, automated sea hunters come in and disembark squads of Atlas soldiers that mop up the rest of the humans on the island. Several hours later, the American fleet sails in and occupies those islands with human soldiers. This is what our enemies face. They face a war where they are fighting only our machines. It's a scary prospect because right now we have the advantage in this technology. We're far ahead of our rivals, but it won't always be so. The Chinese and the Russians are determined to catch up with us, and one day they will. What will happen then? Now that we've talked a little bit about war, let's talk about society. The structure of global and national society is changing rapidly. What's pictured here is a little FedEx robot. It is, as we speak, delivering pizzas around New York City, a job that humans used to do. The majority of jobs being created today are, as you may have heard, low-wage, low-productivity jobs, things like front-end retail jobs and restaurant jobs, among others. AI is in a position to automate all those, as we'll see. But increasingly, AI is also automating middle management jobs and also jobs that used to be considered high-paying, high-skilled jobs. Any jobs that are rules-based are susceptible to being automated by AI today. Some examples of this include in information systems, my own field, system administration. AIs can now take care of the servers for me. I don't need to do that myself. And also network threat detection. There are AIs in control of determining and protecting networks from threats such as viruses and malware. In engineering and architecture, routine design and specifications can be completely done by AI. In the medical field, image analysis, diagnosis, and even a lot of surgeries are done by AI. In the financial industry, stock trades and wealth management are increasingly been done by AI. And lastly, human resources, management, and even in the education field, teaching will increasingly be done by AIs. So let's look at a few of these things. Let's look at the consequences of that. This is a graph here, and I want to show you that the jobs I'm talking about that I just mentioned that will be automated within the next few years are right here in this corner of the graph. Whoops. Let me try that again. There we go. This corner of the graph, right here. So in the lower half of the graph, looking at the y-axis, the lower half are jobs that are hard to come by, that there aren't very many of those jobs being created. In the upper half of the graph are jobs that have an increased share, in other words, are more frequently created in our economy. Looking at the x-axis, the less productive jobs, in other words, the ones that are paid less and lower skilled, are on the left side, and the ones that are higher skilled and paid more are on the right side. Right now, all of these jobs that I've just circled can be automated with artificial intelligence, and many of them are. We'll take a look at that in just a few minutes. But increasingly, some other ones will be automated fairly soon, and that includes finance and insurance, manufacturing, and everything in supply chains. Over the next 3 years, over 120 million workers will need to reskill. The problem with that is that skills are taking longer and longer to learn because the jobs that are left to be done by humans are higher and higher skilled. So just 6 years ago, it only took 3 days for someone to learn a new job skill. Now it takes an average of 36 days. And you can see on the right-hand side, millions and millions of workers in these countries are going to need to find something else to do. And these are conservative figures. I actually think that the number of workers will be much higher. And we've already found out in the past few months what happens when lots of people don't have anything to do. They find other things to do, like go out and burn buildings, and you'll see sweeping social protests, just like you've seen in the last couple of months. Various national economies around the world will accept this change at varying rates. The United States is furthest along in this revolution. Other countries are following at different rates. Russia, however, is really floundering. They don't have the economic strength to really affect this revolution. Europe is also accepting AI at a slower pace, mainly because they have social structures in place like guilds and strong unions that are preventing a lot of it from happening. So it's not that the economic proposition in these countries aren't the same. They are. The economic proposition is very valuable, but there are social reasons and financial reasons that it's happening at varying rates around the world. But my point to you is that it is happening globally, and it's happening very fast. In previous industrial revolutions, it was much more slow. In the first industrial revolution that started in Britain in the 18th century, it took, hundreds of years for that to spread around the world. More recently, in the 1970s, when robots started to be introduced in the U.S. factories, that took about 25 years to happen, a generation to happen. This revolution has been going on for the last few years and will take only a few more years to complete. That's less than a generation. That's maybe 10, 15, let's say 20 years at the outside. People can't adjust that fast. And as you'll see, if the military section didn't make it clear to you, as you see, this technology is fraught with opportunities for abuse. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about what's happening in offices and homes in the United States. This picture is a picture of Zenbo. Zenbo is made by Asus. It's a personal household robot. You can buy it now today for $599. They also make another robot called Zenbo Jr. that's for children. So just like the millennial generation grew up with smartphones and the internet at their fingertips, children today are going to grow up talking to their smart machines. In offices over the next 2 years, the same AI assistants that are now common in homes, like Alexa and Google Assistant, will become common. And they'll control everything in the office, anything from the temperature to computer logins. In homes today, smart personal robots are becoming more and more common. This is a group of robots here that I have to show you. First is the Roomba vacuum cleaner. This Roomba is the latest model. It can connect to Alexa. It can map your entire house by itself, and it can empty its own dirt. The only thing you have to do is empty the large tank once in a while. Going counterclockwise over to the right, we have, by a company called Dolphin, we have the Escape Pool Cleaner. For $599, you can buy yourself a pool cleaner and never have to clean your pool again or hire somebody to clean it. Down here we have the Ecovacs WinBot 880 window cleaner. If you have picture windows in your house or you have a lot of glass in your office building, you can buy this robot for a mere $450. It will crawl your windows for you and clean all of them. You never have to hire another window cleaner again. This robot here is our cheapest robot. This is the Smart AI Personal Robot Cameraman. If you are making a video for Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok, this robot will follow you around as you're making your video and keep you on camera for a mere $87. This robot here is one of my favorites and the most expensive robot today that we'll talk about. It's by a company called Obi, and it is designed to feed disabled folks. So it's a feeding and dining assistant. And it can be taught in a few minutes where your mouth is, and it can feed you. So if you are disabled, you can now have dinner with your family and you don't have to have a caregiver right there to feed you. You can have dinner with your family, and you can feed yourself with the help of this robot. Its cost is $6,800. Another one of my favorites is this little guy here. This is Misty. Misty is a general purpose robot. It can be programmed to do all sorts of things for $1,999. And last but not least, we have the Dogness iPet pet sitting robot. Yes, you can have robots take care of your children and also your pet. It will follow your pet around, it will entertain your pet, and it can even dispense treats. So all of these are available right now. You could go on Amazon and buy any one of these. But what's going to come in the future? What's in the near future, the next couple of years? Well, let's check out Sophia and Little Sophia.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I might look human, but I am actually a robot. I am an innovative robot who uses sophisticated AI to communicate with humans. And as I interact with more and more people, I am constantly getting smarter. I have become a champion of innovation for the United Nations Development Program. I rub shoulders with world leaders, top business people, and celebrities.
Sophia the robot, everybody!
And now I'd like you to meet someone. Please welcome Little Sophia. Little Sophia is a 14-inch tall robot that can do all the amazing things Big Sophia can do it in a smaller package.
Hey Sophia, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? I have a superpower. I can code.
Little Sophia can create a deep connection with others by making eye contact and recognizing facial cues. She is curious about the world. She wants you to help her learn. She has an ever-expanding imagination and can take you on wild adventures.
Hey Sophia, where is the asteroid belt? The asteroid belt is between Mars and Jupiter. Isn't it beautiful?
You can learn things together with her. She's also full of personality. She is always learning, and you can teach her new tricks through her open-source programming.
Let's dance.
Little Sophia wants girls to have fun learning math and science so they become the scientists and engineers of the future. Help us begin mass production of Little Sophia so we can inspire the next generation of scientists and engineers and discover the future together.
Little Sophia should be available for purchase within a couple of years by a company called Hanson Robotics. So our homes are going to change. Within a few years, personal robots will be common in all our homes, as common as computers and smartphones. Let's take a look at 5 different industries that are now being taken over by artificial intelligence. Pictured here is the Da Vinci surgical robot by a company called Intuitive. The Da Vinci does all types of surgeries. It can do surgeries from in the cardiac, colorectal, gynecological, thoracic, and urological areas. To give you an idea of how fast medicine is changing with AI, in 2012, 8.7% of surgeons performed general robotic surgery. In 2018, just 6 years later, the latest year for which I have figures, it was 35%. So in the space of 6 years, it more than quadrupled the number of surgeons that perform robotic surgery. The economic advantages of doing surgery by robot is so vast that the pace of this will only accelerate. Let's take a look at some restaurants here. Restaurants right now are having a hard time surviving. As you know, they were forcibly closed down during the virus mess, but before that they were still struggling. Current AI technology can automate over half of restaurant jobs. Those restaurant jobs that you had as a teenager, they're going to be gone very, very soon. At the same time, the cost of automating these jobs has fallen by 40%, while labor cost has risen to $15 per hour plus benefits. Restaurants are also having to deal with rising rents. All of these things cut into their profits, but none more than the fact that consumers are shifting to online ordering and delivery. So consumers are opting to not go into restaurants and eat. So restaurants have to change. They're automating both the front end and the back end. This picture you see here is a front end automation. This is a restaurant called Itza in California. This is a contactless front end restaurant. There's not a human involved in getting you your food. You order from a kiosk and you pick up your food at one of these magic doors here that these folks are standing in front of by pressing a button. The Itza restaurants closed in February 2019, but the company behind them, Brightloom, is now selling end-to-end restaurant automation technology all throughout the industry. They have a lot of money behind them too. Starbucks is the major investor. But robots are also invading the back side of restaurants. Mesa Robotics has invented a robot called Flippy that's being used in Caliburgo restaurants and also in Dodger Stadium, among other venues. Flippy uses artificial intelligence to learn new recipes as restaurants change their menus, and it learns how to cook. These robots are being provided using a business model called robots as a service. That's a fancy way of saying that the robots are leased. So for a small monthly fee, you can have these robots put in place and installed and maintained, and you don't have to lay out a large chunk of capital up front. The folks who work in automated kitchens are now called chef techs. And the video I'm about to show you is a fully automated Flippy kitchen with one chef tech and two Flippy assistants. Check this out. In a lot of colleges around the country, there's a new AI robot being put in called Sally. Sally, as you might guess from her name, makes salads. So AI isn't just automating food prep within restaurants, it's also automating food prep outside of restaurants. Oops.
Since all the cafeterias are closed and all that's available is vending machines with snacks.
I think that the hardest thing to eating healthy is
not having a convenient option.
I mean, I'm starving, but I don't want anything sugary or carby.
Today's new food safety challenges require innovative solutions. Meet Sally, the salad bar reinvented. In just a 3x3 space, Sally uses advanced robotics to assemble fresh, customizable meals like never seen before. Its tamper-proof refrigerator keeps ingredients safe and optimally fresh, giving your customers the confidence they need to design a bowl they love. Our world-class culinary team partners with your chefs to offer meals for any time of the day, like salads, grain bowls, snacks, and more. And no matter the menu you serve, customers can personalize their meal, complete with interactive nutrition information. Discover the only solution that gives you the power to safely serve delicious meals for every taste, for everyone, at every time, everywhere. Welcome to the future of fresh food service. Welcome to Fresh for All.
So as you can see, AI can operate restaurants 24/7. They never get sick. They don't need vacations. They don't need benefits. The economic proposition here is staggering. The only humans that remain in restaurants are ones that serve the robots. Increasingly, traditional restaurants are going away in favor of what's called ghost kitchens. You may have heard of these. Ghost kitchens are essentially large warehouses with a number of kitchens in them, and all of these restaurants are operating from this same building, but they don't have dine-in areas. It's exclusively for ordering online and delivery of those orders. So these kitchens also can be highly automated using the robots that I've just shown you. The food can be produced, and your Uber Eats or your DoorDash delivery person arrives at the door, picks up your order, and delivers it to you. All of the delivery services are developing their own ghost kitchens, but one company in particular, Kitchen United, that has a lot of money behind it, is opening and operating ghost kitchens all over the country. Think about the economic proposition here. To build and equip a regular restaurant concept in an urban area, upfront capital cost is about $750,000. But you can rent a ghost kitchen from Kitchen United for $50,000. Given that most restaurant orders are coming online now through apps or through the web, it makes good economic sense to do a ghost kitchen. It's interesting to note that during the coronavirus lockdowns, as traditional restaurants shed literally thousands and thousands of employees, ghost kitchens continue to expand and hire. The problem is that ghost kitchens don't take nearly as many as employees as regular restaurants do. So those jobs, as I mentioned, are disappearing. They're becoming rare. Your grocery store is also getting smarter. Over 9,300 retail stores closed in 2019, and another 4,300 have closed so far in 2020. These are retail stores and restaurants. The rising cost that I've told you about is causing these retail stores to have to rethink their business models to remain profitable. Walmart is one of the store chains that are deploying thousands and thousands of robots all across the country. They do everything from monitor inventory to unload trucks. Pictured here is a floor scrubber. This particular floor scrubber was named Freddie by the workers in the Marietta, Georgia Walmart. It was named Freddie because Freddie was the name of the guy that the scrubber replaced. So workers do lose jobs as these AIs and robots come online. And it's not just the fact that jobs are being lost, because there are also new jobs being created. But the problem is, the issue is how quickly this revolution is happening. It's not giving people enough time to adjust and to reskill and find another job. The only, in a fully automated Walmart, the only workers left are the ones who service the robots. And they feel like machines themselves, because the only thing they do is adhere to a schedule for maintaining the robots. Customers still have to get used to the robots as well. Sometimes customers freak out. They'll kick or hit the robots. In one case, a customer fell asleep on top of a floor scrubber that was running around a store cleaning the floors. I'm going to show you a short video about the company and the robots that Walmart is buying. The company it's buying them from is called Bossa Nova. Walmart plans to take the money that it saves in salaries in its stores and put them into other areas, like expanding its e-commerce or hiring folks to pick orders for delivery. Our cars are also getting smarter. If you own a Tesla, you already know what I'm talking about. In December 2018, a man was sleeping in his Tesla as it roared down the highway in California at 70 miles per hour. Now that's pretty good technology. Smart cars can do things like identify road hazards, they can adjust their speed in traffic, and they can navigate by themselves. Again, the economic proposition for autonomous vehicles is huge. Japan and France have already changed their laws so that autonomous vehicles can be running on their roads. Japan wants to get them on the road sometime this year. France wants to do that by 2022. But smart cars and trucks in general around the world will be commonplace by 2030. Lyft and Uber drivers will be out of the job at that point. Smart cars aren't the only vehicles. We also have smart commercial vehicles, smart trucks. All the major manufacturers are partnering with AI companies to produce autonomous commercial vehicles. One of the most interesting is a company called Too Simple, who has partnered with UPS. Too Simple believes that it can cut transport costs by 30%. And if you're UPS, that's a huge deal. Too Simple is running daily tests right now of autonomous long-haul trucks between Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona. Autonomous vehicles in general are expected to add $7 trillion to the world economy by 2050. Let's take a look at how good autonomous vehicles really are. There's been a lot of news from the talking heads criticizing autonomous vehicles. That's to be expected, I guess, with any new technology. But the data bears out a different story. In 4 years, between 2014 and 2018, there were 88 accidents involving autonomous vehicles in California. 81 of those were caused by humans. 3 of those accidents occurred because a human attacked the vehicle, and most of the other accidents occurred by the autonomous vehicle being hit in the rear. In other words, the human behind him wasn't paying attention to the road. So autonomous vehicles themselves are very reliable. And you can see on the bottom there, Waymo's cars averaged 11,000 miles in 2018 without any human intervention whatsoever. Let's take a look at customer service. A breakpoint is a business term for the point at which a human customer is fed up enough to take his or her business to a competitor. Now, AI is being used to, quote-unquote, optimize customer service. That is, it's being used to optimize how call center resources and so forth are used to try to retain the most customers for a business. And the way this works is the AI will measure how long a person is willing to wait in a phone queue before they get help, how many ads they might be willing to tolerate during that time. Also looks at demographics, things like credit scores and other things like that, that tell it whether or not you are a customer that the company wants to keep. And then it will determine how long you wait in that queue. So if somebody is irate behind you in that queue, they'll let you wait a little longer if you're nice and polite and deal with the irate person. These techniques have resulted in a marked drop in customer service. I mentioned to you the financial industry. In 2019, Deutsche Bank shed 18,000 jobs. Barclays Bank cut another 3,000 jobs. AI handles 60% of market trades. And for the first time last year, AIs managed more equity portfolios than human managers. AIs managed 35%, humans managed 24%. All the rest of the equity portfolios were in unmanaged vehicles. To give you an idea of how fast the financial industry is changing, in 2000, just 20 years ago, Goldman Sachs employed 600 equity traders. Today it has only 2, and its business has grown. So far in 2020, investment bank revenues are up 12%, but jobs are down 6% due to automation. And these are considered high-skilled, high-paid jobs that are disappearing. In medicine, I mentioned that a lot of surgeries are already performed by AI, but AI is also doing medical imaging. GE's family of apps and also Johns Hopkins has an AI that can analyze images, and they can do so with much higher accuracy than human doctors. On another medical front, Case Western Reserve has developed a robot pictured here. This is Woody. Woody can understand over 3,500 human facial expressions, and he is programmed to be emotional and social support for people. How about job applications? I don't know how many of you out there have applied for a job lately, but it's getting pretty difficult. You have to get through a robot first. Artificial intelligence will replace at least 16% of HR jobs in just 10 years. But AI right now is capable of searching social media for candidates. It can search by household income, salary, age, etc. It can analyze his or her resume, and it can conduct a first interview. Did you guys get that just now? A machine is conducting the first interview to get a job. So, think about this. Would an artificial intelligence decide that you're a great fit for a company? Here's a couple of products for your amusement. These are both AIs that will interview you. Olivia, by a company called Paradox, is a first-level interviewer. She'll look for the best candidates and pass them through to a human recruiter. And DeepSense by Froley can actually analyze your personality using tools like DISC or Big 5. It will also analyze your linguistic patterns and word usage to try to figure out what kind of a person you are. But the most common platform used is HireVue. HireVue is used by more than 700 of the Fortune 1000 companies, and it also does first-level interviews. The problem with all of these sorts of products right now is that the AIs carry the same biases of their human programmers. So whatever the HR folks program it to look for are the type of people that it's going to find for the company. Now this can be a bad thing, because if you aren't easily pigeonholed in a particular category, or if the AI determines that you aren't a quote-unquote fit for the culture, then you're passed over. You don't get an interview. How many of us would find it difficult to get past those AIs? To give you an idea of how important this is, you can go out on YouTube right now and find lots of videos out there to train a candidate on how to get past the bots, how to write your resume, how to scrub your social media, and how to do that video interview. Let's talk a little bit about surveillance in society. AIs are being used for surveillance all over the world. In authoritarian regimes, they're used for population control. In free countries, it's used more for policing and smart city applications. But you can see there are only a few countries in the world that are not under surveillance by these machines. So Big Brother truly is watching. Over 75 countries actively use AI surveillance. The U.S. supplies technology to only 32 of these countries. China supplies 50 of them. And it has the advantage, due to its Belt and Road program, it provides financing so that countries can put these systems in place. But what does this mean for society? What does it mean for the class structure? Well, it's interesting to note that the United States and China are both approaching the same class structure, but from opposite directions. In China, what they call untrusteds cannot travel, borrow money, send their kids to certain schools, or receive certain government services. In the United States, we're being divided into fits and misfits, people who can be pigeonholed and fit into categories and easily categorized, and others that can't be. Misfits will have a difficulty obtaining a job, borrowing money, or joining certain organizations in our country. So, let's summarize how this revolution looks. We have economic upheaval because of the rapid obsolescence of both low and high skilled jobs. This is resulting in greater income inequality. It's resulting in an unstable stock market. We're also having experienced increased conflict within society. Generational gaps are widening. Riots, protests, violence. Political parties are scrambling to try to find a formula to win elections. And community and religion are also evolving because of this. So what can we do to smooth this revolution? Well, our politicians are clueless. The rapidity of the revolution is underestimated by everyone. The real issue is that not everyone is suited for the high-skilled careers that will be available in a post-revolution society. What will happen to these folks? The misuse of AI can quickly isolate an individual in their society, and that's going to weaken government institutions. The worst possible problem is that consumer income may collapse. It's with so many people out of work not having income, what will happen to a consumer-driven economy like the United States? And this problem could cascade globally. Government is not the instrument that's going to smooth this ride. The misuse of AI is quickly getting out of hand, and economic structures will be incredibly strained, and that will give rise to impulsive political changes to our global society. But we have some possible solutions to smooth things out that have been offered. Basically, you can break it down into adjustments to capitalism or a push towards socialism. So we could, for example, implement a shorter work week, maybe 24 hours. It's been done before. During the Great Depression, the 40-hour work week was put in place to force companies to hire more individuals. So we can do the same thing here. It could be that lots of people will become entrepreneurs and find other things to do. But in the end, we're going to need to place some legal limits on the use of AI. We're going to have to prevent the abuse that will divide or alienate citizens from society. On the other side of the spectrum, we could consider socialism. Universal basic income is an instrument that could solve the collapse of consumer incomes. Universal health care could be provided. In that sort of a solution, though, illegal immigration would have to be halted in order to make these solutions work. So what can you do to protect your personal wealth? Well, you could invest in successful AI companies in various economic sectors. You could invest in companies that are rapidly embracing AI technologies. And you could also find companies that are up-and-coming innovators and disruptors in their industries. I've introduced you to many of those companies in this presentation. And lastly, we could choose to integrate with our machines. But that's a subject for another talk. But remember, resistance is futile. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll now put it in Q&A mode and accept questions. If any of you would like to ask questions, please go ahead. If you indicate you would like to ask a question, then I can unmute you. Yes, Nancy, what's your question?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You mentioned that should we go to universal health care or guaranteed income for everyone, that in your mind, logically, that would mean we would have to do away with immigration or illegal immigration anyway. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. This revolution is happening all over the planet at the same time. We're going to have to control the immigration to the country in order for these programs to work, because otherwise the funding for them would continue to rise and rise and rise until it was unsustainable. So to be able to come up with a sustainable program for either universal basic income or universal health care, we would have to somehow limit immigration into the country. Does that answer your question?
That's the obvious answer. Are there other solutions?
Other solutions that wouldn't involve limiting immigration?
Yeah.
Well, the solutions to adjusting capitalism would not involve that. So on the other side of the house, I guess there are some solutions that wherein immigration wouldn't need to be taken into account.
I'm simply thinking of the fact that historically our country has depended on immigrants to take, frankly, the lower quality jobs. And if everyone receives the same amount of income and universal health care, who's going to do those jobs? Or are the robots going to take over?
Well, that's the thing. There aren't going to be any so-called lower quality jobs or lower productivity jobs. Those types of positions will all be automated.
Thank you.
You bet. Mike, you have a question. Whoop, Mike left. Okay. 434-542-5274. I don't know your name, but if you have a question, you can ask it.
It's Lenwood. I just wanted to say it was an outstanding presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a lot of information in a short amount of time.
It's all right.
Oh, here's Mike. Let him ask his question.
Yes.
Mike, go ahead.
And I just wondered if this is being recorded because it kept dropping out and I missed parts of it.
It is being recorded, yes.
Will we get some sort of a notice where we can find it?
Yes, it'll eventually be posted on YouTube, and I'm sure that a notice will be sent out.
Thank you.
You bet. Let's see. It looks like Sue has a question here, but I'm having a little trouble unmuting her. Sue, can you hear me? Sue, it doesn't look like you're connected for audio. I'm sorry about that. Would you like to type your question into a chat window? Well, I don't know if Sue can hear me or not. Are there any other questions? Nancy, did you have another question?
Not really.
Okay. You were still appearing on the list. Now, it looks like we have a question from 803-776-4765. You may ask your question. Go ahead and ask your question. 776-4765. Okay.
Eric?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you have a question?
Yeah, this is Ed Latimer, your companion here in Columbia. What's being done to upgrade the efficiency of Zoom and free conference?
Would you repeat that question? I couldn't hear you.
On your AI, what is being done to increase the efficiency of Zoom and pre-conference?
Well, I don't know if either of these services have AI components to them. I'm afraid I have to say I don't know to that one. Are there any other questions? Let's see. Oh, I think somebody is writing me a question here. The question is, what would a Luddite of the 21st century do to be effective? In other words, to resist this wave. What would an intelligent person have to do? I don't know that it can be resisted per se. I think the revolution is going to happen. It's already been happening for the last 5 years or so. So I don't think you can resist it per se. What you need to do is adapt. And the best way I can tell you to do that is by protecting your wealth using some of the techniques I went over. And you could also take an opportunity to learn a little bit more about technology. Maybe get yourself an inexpensive personal robot as a start. Start exploring the technology and what it can do. The technology itself isn't bad. It's a good thing. What's bad, or what's a challenge, is how fast it's happening in our society and what we're going to have to do to manage the consequences of that. Are there any other questions? If not, what I'm going to do for everybody is send you, in the form of a chat message, I'm going to send you my presentation in the form of a PDF. It has all the links in it and my notes, and you'll be able to explore this topic further for yourself. Looks like I have some other questions coming in by chat here shortly. I'll get to those in just a second. All right, so there's the presentation. There's my notes for you to download. Let me scroll up to some of these questions here. It says, this question here says, if you could design a robot, what would you design? That's a very good question. If I could design one, I think what I would like to have is a robot that would help me with my work around the house. I'd love to have a robot like Rosie on the Jetsons. Hopefully one day I'll be able to get some. Maybe Sophia will work out for me. Another question, can you offer some examples of AI abuse dividing or alienating citizens? Why, sure. How about the process that I went over for applying for a job? There are lots and lots of folks who cannot navigate the new way of doing interviews. I mean, think about this. There are lots of people out there that don't have access to computers with cameras. They can't do an online video interview. There's lots of people that don't know how to write a resume. Now, you can get help with these things, and some people do, but generally you have to pay for that help. So I guess what I'm saying is that unless you are technologically literate, or even I would go so far as to say more talented than the average bear with technology, it would be very, very difficult for you to apply for a job these days. So we're dividing our society into haves and have-nots because of that. It says here, another question, is there a particular reason why the Terminator bots are made to resemble humans? Yes, there are a couple of reasons for that. One is the human form is very flexible, very versatile. So building a robot in human form will allow those robots to do the things that humans do. For example, Atlas can turn doorknobs. Atlas can run, can walk. You can see videos right now of Atlas running and walking through the woods and avoiding obstacles or going over obstacles in all different kinds of weather. So that's one reason. Another reason to do that, to make other robots, not Terminators necessarily, but other robots look human, is because humans will interact with them more easily if they look human. That's also why some of the personal robots, if you look closely at their faces, they have LED screens for faces, but they put on faces with earnest human expressions that enable you to interact with them on an emotional level. I think there's another question. Let's see. How could an AI assistant help Torch International recruit new members across North America? Supposing we could find such an AI to do that, we could probably adapt one of the AIs that do human resource work for that. They now search social media for job candidates. No reason we couldn't program one to search social media for Torch member candidates as well. We would just have to come up with the funding to make that happen. If there are no other questions, it's about time, I think, for me to sign off. George, I'm going to unmute you in case there's anything you'd like to say. Go ahead, George.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. Obviously, a lot of stuff is going on. I'm not sure that I would pass the robot job interview at this point, for sure. But in any case, I thought Ann asked an interesting question. With an iPad here, I don't have a keyboard, so I can't type any questions in. But thank you very much. I don't see that Dorothy is on the line, so I can't pass her a gavel. And so I will not try. But thank you very much for your presentation, and I am looking forward to seeing it on YouTube. My club in Durham, Chapel Hill has voted to have a Zoom meeting or something similar, or with this presentation, to be taken from YouTube at that point, and you'll be the guest speaker remotely in November. How's that?
I'd love to do that for you.
Okay, well, except you won't have to be there. You will be a bot at that point, right?
Well, I hope everyone has enjoyed the presentation. I enjoyed putting it together and giving it. There will be an article coming up in the Torch magazine. And in the meantime, you guys have my notes and the slides so that you can further investigate and figure out this revolution on your own.
Well, thank you very much. People are dropping in droves. We're now down to 28 from 50. So I think we'd better say good night, and thank you very much for your presentation. Good evening.
Thank you, George. Take it easy, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Still not disconnected.